Well, I was born in Dawson, Georgia in 1935, September 13th. And it was a little town, southwest Georgia, where my grandfather had moved there out of Kentucky because he had developed a lung condition. It's hard for him to breathe. He had to move south where it was a little easier to breathe. That's what he was trying to get away from, was really cold weather. He moved down there and he was in the mule business. He had a mule barn, and that's what he moved from Kentucky, brought it with him. My grandmother, who was named Maud Sidnor, if you can imagine anybody naming a child that. My mother was from Shellman, Georgia. But anyway, they got married, and I was born in an apartment right around the corner from the fire department. And before I was even 1 or 2 years old, I had become the mascot of the fire department. They'd take me and pick me up, take me over there and watch me. And my grandmother and grandfather lived across the street in a huge house. Then a tractor came along and the mule business went to hell in a handbasket. So, and then that wasn't too long after that he died. My grandmother moved to Albany and had a boarding house. She cooked and kept boarders.
Did you and your mom and dad move to Albany when your grandmother moved to Albany?
We didn't move then, but visited her and lived with her for a period of time when I was young. And during the war, I lived with my aunt and uncle, again in Shellman, Georgia, because my mother and father both worked in the shipyard at Brunswick. My dad was a master electrician. My mother was Rosie the riveter, and she was a crew chief on a crew of ship fitters. You have to be careful with that. Ship fitters. So they both worked hard in night shift, graveyard shift. And I stayed with Aunt Myrtle and Uncle Homer Sherlock in Shellman for that at least 3 years during the war, during World War II. And they worked to save their money and bought savings bond. It was going to be the beginning of the Cushenberry Empire until some SOB cheated him out of it. But anyway, that's another story. Well, then I moved from there, from Shellman, right at the end of the war, and I moved with them in Savannah. We lived there a year and a half, too. And then I get a little hazy about because we moved so many times. My dad, like I said, was an electrician. And he went wherever the work was. There was a lot of construction going on. After the war, he was booming. So he moved wherever the big jobs were. I have heard, I don't know this, but I was told that I changed schools 14 times in the 4th grade. So how much education do you think I got? Probably got as much as they got last year here. But it's totally different then. But we moved around a lot. Spartanburg, Florida, South Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, all around. And all that was part of my growing up. And my dad moved to Houston, just outside of Houston, Texas.
That's what I remember. At some point, Uncle Ricky was born and Grandma went to Texas.
I was 10 when he was born, so I was just finishing up grade school. And I stayed there, and we lived in Grandma's backyard for a while in a trailer. And this is about the time, somewhere in there, my dad moved to Texas. And he went to work for Dow Chemical Company, which had 2 huge plants. When they moved in, he went out there first. Mom and I stayed at Grandma's backyard in the trailer. And I went to grade school, junior high. I had a paper route, 180 papers I delivered on a bicycle, 7 days a week. and you had to be your own bookkeeper. I had once a month I had to go all 180 houses and collect for the paper. You had to keep book, who'd paid, who hadn't paid. Believe it or not, it was only about $2 a month, but a lot of people couldn't pay it. But my route was partially in town and partially out where they started to build subdivisions. Very early on, the roads weren't paved, and a bicycle tire on a dirt road or sand road was hard to get up and down. Anyway, this is about the time I was ready to enter high school, and Mom and Ricky was getting ready to move out to Texas to join my dad. This was the spring of my sophomore year, which would have been about 50 or 51, something on there. And I'd gone out, it was after the football season, but I went out for spring training. And my high school coach, Bernie Reed, said he saw enough that he convinced my mother she would leave me in Albany. He could get me a college football scholarship so I could go to college. Nobody in my family had ever been to college. So somehow or another, my mother and my Aunt Thelma decided that I could move in with Aunt Thelma and Martha Pollard. They owned the house together, 3 of them. One of them since got married and moved away. So there was a 3-bedroom house. So I moved into the one that had, into Marjorie's room, because she got married and moved out. So each one of us had a room, 1 bathroom, which was a problem. Anyway, so I stayed behind and moved in with Aunt Thelma, worked in Bob Nixon Nursery all the rest of the way through high school, and on every break I ever had in college I came out. It was the only place I had to earn any money. And not to disparage my family at all, but I think while I was in college, 4 years, I think I got 4 or 5 $5 checks for spending money from my family. They didn't have anything. They were living. I mean, he was getting there, but he wasn't there yet. She thought I was on scholarships. I didn't need any money. So, anyway, I'd work anytime I had a chance. Every Christmas, anything I was on break, I'd go. I'd work out there as much as I possibly could. I really enjoyed it because I learned a lot about taking care of plants and treating them and pruning them, all that stuff. And you go to a nursery now and you go and pick up a potted plant or something that's in a container, you just take it out and put it in your car and go home. Well, our plants were all in the ground. Somebody says, I want that one, and that one. I had to dig them up, burlap them, and put them in a trunk. And then sometimes it was a special customer. He would let us take the truck, follow them home, and plant them for them in their yard. So the world was different then. But I played high school football for Bernie Reed, who was a Georgia graduate, World War II vet. At the end of World War II, the GI Bill sent a lot of guys to college on the GI Bill. And then they had a scholarship that helped the ones that were married to raise a family and play football at the same time. Every school that you could think of was full of them. And they were war-hardened veterans that came in and started playing football. Anyway, Bernie was my coach, and I didn't start till my junior year in high school, and went from there. Like I say, I had all Southeast, all state, all regional, all that
You
stuff.
got all those awards playing 2 years in high school.
Yes.
What was your position?
In high school, I played down lineman, guard, both offense and defense. And we were tied, and we played for the state championship my senior year. And Lanier High School beat us. We played the game in Macon. one of my very best friends at the time. His name was Gugu Height. He's a nice guy, very athletic, the best running back I'd ever seen or been around at that time. And during a championship game, he had caught a pass or was making a run, I don't remember which, but he got scissored. Somebody hit him high, somebody hit him low. And that was the end of, I think it was his right knee. Just did like that. And he never played again. He did get scholarships from everybody. And he came to Georgia because myself and another one of our teammates, Harold Cook, had a scholarship to Georgia. And we were best of buddies. So they gave him a scholarship if he was able to pay all that. And so he went, but he went to Georgia for at least a year, maybe two. But it was his injury to his leg hounded him all the way to his death about 4 years ago.
When you were in high school, did you play other sports besides football?
Mostly just track. I set the AAU, American Athletic Union or something. I set the record in javelin. And I had been throwing a javelin for 2 years. My coach, Jack O'Brien, he just said, okay, you're a big guy, you want to do the javelin and the discus and the shot put. So I had never done any of that. So anyway, I learned how to do that. I threw the javelin, I think, at the some big regional meet we had, and threw it 179 feet, if my memory serves. At that time, it was a record. It stood for about 6 years. And I never played any after that because football year-round in college. But I played track, and everybody was trying to go for the 4-minute mile in those days. They still are, I guess. But we had a really good one named Ivzel. That was his last name. And he would be running his mile, and Coach O'Brien would get one guy to run with him for one lap, and another guy would run him another lap, another guy. He'd keep his speed up going for that mile. And I think I was on the last one. Of course, you were out running him because he was running a mile and you were running about 400 yards. And I just kept running. That race was over. I kept running. I ran about 450, 60 yards. And that I became then the anchor man on the 440 relay, which was the worst thing I ever did in my life. I am not a distance runner. I'm short and fast, and then I'm gonna breathe a little bit. But I got to run the 440 relay then in my last year at high school. And from there I went to Georgia.
So when you were leaving high school and moving out to college, you had several options, but went with Georgia.
Yeah,
Georgia?
I had 12 college offers for scholarship in all the South, Texas, Tech, Georgia, Auburn, Alabama, and of course, my mom was made up way back in high school when I first started playing football in a junior year in high school. Because my coach was a graduate from Georgia. He's an old World War II veteran and had all tough as nails, and he did the same thing at Albany. They did here at Georgia. And so when he offered me scholarships, but I'd go visit, take a look, see what they had to do. But, I knew I'd want to go. And so when I finally signed a contract, came to Georgia, and it was just tough as nails, a different kind of football altogether. We went both ways. There was no platoons or anything like that. You started the game, and you stayed in no matter who had the ball until you got substituted. Somebody came in. We'd go out and practice for 3 hours, no water, nothing to eat but salt pills. And that was, so anyway, that was the way it was done. All the teams did that. Auburn, Alabama, even Georgia Tech. They all played that hard-nosed football. And you know, I mentioned earlier that all the guys that went after the war was veterans.
Right.
And you couldn't hurt one of them or run them off anything. They would have stayed if they'd have come under fire because they wanted that college scholarship. When I came to Georgia in 1953, all that had changed, and now there was 17-year-old boys coming. I was 17 when I got to Georgia for the beginning of football training in, I think it was July. And when I showed up as a freshman, I think there was 140 had scholarships. There was no limit, you know. You got you come to Georgia type of thing, and everybody got them all over the South. Everybody did the same thing. So, and it was kind of funny. We lived in Payne Hall, which was aptly named. It was named after somebody, but a lot of pain went on, especially during tour days when you just got back and all these muscles were getting reintroduced to hard work and you couldn't walk. Anyway, the joke was at night when everything got quiet, you could tell what time of year it was because you could hear the suitcases hitting the ground outside. They packed up and left. They didn't want to ride down the hall and be shamed about everybody seeing them leaving. They'd wait till everybody was in their room, kind of go to bed. They'd pack up and they'd drop them out the windows on the second floor. And you could hear, you'd be up sitting in your room here, boom, boom. You'd hear the suitcases hit the ground. I said we had 140 some odd on scholarship freshman class, and I think we graduated with 17 or 18. Anyway, we came here and we didn't have a very good team, so we got run over a lot, and it was just a little bit miserable because we didn't have a hell of a lot of talent. You know, no big name, no Herschel Walkers, Frankie Sinkles, no Charlie Trippies, no Zeke Batowski, none of the people that you hear about and know about now. Coach Butts was the head coach, and Coach Shoemaker, Coach Wright, Coach Speck Towns, Watley, and Posey was one. You know, they had about 5, and they changed around. But my position coach was Harry Wright. When I came and got here, it was hard, and it was. But then we found out that Coach Wright, my coach, his wife had died the summer that we got here, and left him with 5 children. That was tough. And he had to carry that with him to practice. And I think Coach Butts asked him one time when he was running us up the hill at the stadium, and he would get us out there and run the bank. And it's about 30 to 40 degree slant. You'd run up and you'd walk back down, you'd run up and walk back down. And Coach Butts walked up to him and said, "Well, Harry, are you going to run them until they die?" Because he was just out of it with having lost his wife and having all that on his mind and everything. But he blew the whistle and we all went in when he said that. Because nobody screwed Coach Butts very much. He would bump heads with you and get scabs on his head. Coach Lumpkin was probably the most athletic human being I ever knew, as far as just being made out of iron. He was a dormitory man, a guy that lived in the dorm with us, with his wife and 2 boys. Everybody loved Coach Lumpkin. But Coach Lumpkin, getting ready to start practicing, he would say, "Come on, get on me, let's do some push-ups." He'd sit on his shoulders. You weighed 200 pounds, 250, 215, 210. He'd do push-ups. And you sitting on it, you'd just be sitting down on his back with your legs hanging, and he would do those push-ups. And I'm talking about most physical specimen of a man I'd ever seen. Very mild-mannered, very easygoing. just but a wonderful man, really was. We lived in the dormitory. We all ate in the dining hall. Nobody had any money. Well, some of the guys. My buddy Walter White had a car. He was one of the few that had one, and because he was an only child, and his mom and daddy spoiled his ass rotten. But he was a good friend of mine, and we used his car a little bit.